What if I told you the most dangerous person in any room isn't the workaholic, the overachiever, or even the genius? It's the one everyone writes off as lazy. You know the type, grand visions, even grander ideas, yet somehow never doing much. Society calls them lazy. Carl Jung called them something entirely different. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why this person unsettles everyone around them. Maybe even you. Or maybe you are that lazy, ambitious person. Let me show you what I mean. Picture this. You walk into a coffee shop and see two people. At one table, Sarah, laptop open, color-coded planner, fingers flying across the keyboard. Classic overachiever. At another table, Mike, half asleep, scrolling his phone, his notebook untouched for the last hour. Who would you bet on to change the world? Hold that thought, because what I'm about to tell you will flip everything you believe about success. Mike has an idea that could revolutionize transportation. Sarah is updating her LinkedIn profile. Mike spots solutions to problems Sarah doesn't even know exist. Sarah is perfecting her morning routine. So why does everyone assume Sarah will succeed and Mike will fail? Here's the uncomfortable truth. You judge Mike because he threatens everything you've been taught about how the world works. Carl Jung spent his life studying people like Mike, and what he found was this. Society doesn't fear lazy people. We fear the lazy, ambitious person because they prove that everything we've been told about success is a lie. But Jung knew something no one talks about. The lazy, ambitious person isn't actually lazy. They operate on a completely different level of consciousness. While everyone else runs in frantic circles, they're quietly playing an entirely different game. And that game is what changes everything. To understand why, we have to talk about the one thing that makes people more uncomfortable than almost anything else. Jung once wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But what happens when one person refuses to react the way you expect? If you've ever felt misunderstood or underestimated, this is for you. Like, subscribe, and let's flip the script together. The lazy, ambitious person is a walking contradiction that scrambles your brain. Dreams bigger than anyone you know, but might not get out of bed until noon. Has insights that could reshape industries, but won't even change out of their pajamas. Sees opportunities everywhere, yet seems to chase none of them. And that terrifies us. Because if ambition doesn't require constant action, if brilliance doesn't demand 5 a.m. alarms, if success doesn't need the theater of busyness, then what does that say about the exhausting race you've been running all your life? Here's where it gets interesting. Jung discovered something that explains exactly why this type of person makes you so uncomfortable. And it has nothing to do with laziness. Remember that unease you feel around the lazy, ambitious person? Jung had a name for it. Once you understand it, you'll never see productivity culture the same way again. Quick question. When was the last time you did something simply because you wanted to? Not because you had to, not because it would look good online, not because it fit your goals, just because you wanted to. Can't remember? That's the problem. Jung found that our obsession with productivity isn't really about getting things done. It's about proving we're not worthless. He called this the shadow, the parts of ourselves we're terrified to face. And in our culture, the biggest shadow is the fear of being seen as lazy, useless, or unproductive. Here's what Jung knew long ago. We perform productivity. We optimize our routines. We hustle, grind, and post about it. Not because it's effective, but because we're afraid of what happens if we stop. Think about your last vacation. Did you actually relax? Or did you feel guilty, anxious, like you should be doing something useful? The lazy, ambitious person doesn't feel that guilt. And that's what makes them dangerous. They don't perform busyness. They don't prove their worth through constant motion. They're not even pretending. And yet, this is the part that truly breaks people's brains. They still have better ideas than everyone else sprinting through life with their hair on fire. Jung once wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." So what is it about the lazy, ambitious person that bothers you? That they're not playing by the rules you've been forced to follow? That they refuse to sacrifice their present for a hypothetical future? That they're not treating life like a puzzle to be solved with better time management? But what if they're not the problem? What if the problem is actually you? Let me show you why. Because Jung made a discovery about the human mind that explains how someone can have extraordinary ideas while appearing to do nothing. Here's the secret the productivity gurus don't want you to know. Your unconscious mind is infinitely more creative than your conscious, effort-driven thinking. Everything you've been taught about how ideas happen is backwards. Jung wrote, "The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity. The creative mind plays with the objects it loves." Read that again. The creative mind plays. It doesn't grind. It doesn't hustle. It doesn't obsess over smart goals. It plays. Einstein conceived relativity while daydreaming. Tesla envisioned his inventions during solitary evening walks. Jung's greatest breakthroughs came in what others dismissed as lazy periods. So what's really happening inside the mind of the lazy, ambitious person while you think they're wasting time? They're not scrolling aimlessly. They're not being unproductive. They're doing something most people never tap into. They're letting the unconscious mind process information at depths you can't even imagine. While you push yourself through yet another productivity framework, they're quietly making connections between ideas you can't even see. That's why their ideas seem to come out of nowhere. Except they don't. They're the product of deep, ongoing, unconscious processing. Remember Mike from the coffee shop? While Sarah updated her LinkedIn, Mike's brain was solving transportation problems she didn't even know existed. Jung called this active imagination, when the conscious mind steps back and allows the unconscious to surface its insights. Here's the catch. This process can't be forced, scheduled, or optimized. It unfolds on its own timeline. And that's exactly why society fears the lazy, ambitious person, because they've tapped into something that can't be managed, controlled, or packaged into a productivity system. Jung believed, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. The lazy, ambitious person has done exactly that. They've accepted that their mind works differently, and that acceptance gives them access to something no life hack or hustle routine can replicate. But it also makes them a threat to something far bigger than personal productivity. Here's the real reason society fears them, and it's not what you think. This isn't about individual success, it's about power. Jung wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe, but the lazy, ambitious person isn't struggling against the tribe. They're ignoring it completely, and that's dangerous to anyone who profits from your compliance." Think about it. Our entire system rests on a single belief. You go to school for 16 years to learn to follow instructions. You get a job trading hours for money. You buy things to signal your status. You optimize yourself to be more productive. For what? The lazy, ambitious person looks at this and asks one devastating question: why? And nobody has a good answer. They have ambition without anxiety, dreams without desperation, ideas without the frantic need to monetize them. That makes them unpredictable, and unpredictable people are dangerous to systems built on predictability. But here's the deeper fear, the one that keeps people awake at night. What if they're right? What if ambition without anxiety is actually more effective? What if dreams pursued from peace manifest more easily than dreams chased in panic? If that's true, then millions have been suffering for nothing, sacrificing mental health, relationships, and happiness for a system never designed to serve them. The lazy, ambitious person stands as living proof there's another way, a way that doesn't require constant performance or endless optimization. Jung said, "Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." The lazy, ambitious person is looking inward, and what they find there rarely matches what society tells them they should want. And here's where it gets personal, because Carl Jung himself was the perfect example of what happens when the world labels someone as lazy but ambitious. Carl Jung was, quite literally, the lazy, ambitious man of his time, and his story proves it. His colleagues thought he was wasting his potential. The academic world dismissed him as too mystical. Society labeled him brilliant but impractical. Jung spent years in what looked like unproductive solitude, exploring his own mind, developing ideas that seemed to have no practical application, filling journals no one would read. Sound familiar? That's exactly what people say about the lazy, ambitious person today. But here's what Jung knew that his critics didn't. He had accepted something most people are terrified to face, that his mind worked differently, that his greatest contributions would come not from external achievement, but from deep inner exploration. And from that acceptance came insights that would revolutionize psychology: the collective unconscious, personality archetypes, the shadow, the anima and animus, ideas that now shape our understanding of human nature, all born from what looked like laziness, but was actually deep, patient, unconscious processing. History's greatest contributors followed this same pattern. They appeared lazy to their peers because they weren't engaged in visible, measurable activity. Einstein called it combinatory play. Tesla called it mental experimentation. Jung called it active imagination. Society called it laziness. The lazy, ambitious person today is following that same path. And just like Jung, they're waiting, not because they're afraid to act, but because they know forcing their dreams through traditional methods won't work for what they're trying to create. They're waiting for the right moment, the right insight, the right convergence of circumstances that will allow their vision to emerge. And to everyone else, that waiting looks like laziness. Here's what Jung understood, something our society still hasn't learned. The lazy, ambitious person isn't broken. They're evolved. Everything you've been taught about ambition has been designed to keep you trapped. But maybe you're starting to recognize yourself in this description. Maybe you're wondering if you are one of the people society has mislabeled. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But becoming who you truly are requires a very different kind of courage." Let's see if you have it. First sign, you have ideas that seem to come from nowhere. While others research and plan, solutions just appear in your mind. You can't explain where they come from, but they feel true in a way that researched ideas never do. Second sign, traditional productivity advice makes you feel worse, not better. Every time you try to adopt someone else's system, it's like you're fighting against your own nature. Third sign, your energy comes in waves that don't match normal schedules. You might be useless at 9 a.m., but brilliant at midnight. You might need 3 days of apparent inactivity before 1 day of extraordinary output. Sound familiar? That's not laziness. That's your unconscious following its own rhythm. Jung discovered that creation doesn't come from intellect. It comes from the play instinct acting from inner necessity. While everyone else thinks you're wasting time, your mind is playing. While they're forcing, you're incubating. While they're performing, you're processing. But here's the critical point. You've been taught to see these traits as weaknesses. You've been trying to fix yourself, forcing your rhythm to match the so-called productive people around you. Jung would tell you to stop. He'd tell you that your rhythm isn't a bug, it's a feature. When you stop fighting your nature and start working with it, you unlock true ambition. Not the desperate, anxious ambition that burns people out, but the calm, patient ambition that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you're capable of. This is why your dreams are so big, because you're not draining yourself trying to be someone else. You have the energy to imagine visions that match your actual potential. This is why your confidence seems unearned to others, because you're not basing your worth on their approval. You can believe in possibilities they dismiss as unrealistic. But accepting this truth about yourself, that's the hardest part. So here's the practical question. How do you live as a lazy, ambitious person in a world obsessed with constant productivity? Jung believed the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But once you've accepted your nature, you need a strategy. First, stop apologizing for your rhythm. Your energy patterns aren't random. They're information. When you feel the urge to do nothing, that's not laziness talking. It's your unconscious asking for processing time. Give it that time. Protect it. Defend it against anyone who tries to fill every moment with activity. Second, learn to recognize the difference between rest and avoidance. The lazy, ambitious person needs both, but they feel entirely different. Rest feels peaceful, necessary, like charging a battery. Avoidance feels anxious, guilty, like running from something. When you're truly resting, ideas arrive. When you're avoiding, all you get is more anxiety. Third, Develop what Jung called active patience. This isn't passive waiting. It's conscious preparation for when your moment arrives. While your unconscious is processing, your conscious mind can be gathering resources, building skills, and creating the right conditions so that when inspiration strikes, you're ready. And here's the most important part. You must stop measuring yourself by other people's timelines. Society wants results yesterday. The productivity world promises 90-day transformations. Social media celebrates instant success. But Jung understood something far deeper. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that journey does not happen on a schedule. Your ambitions might take years to manifest. Your ideas might need time to mature. Your moment might not come until you're 40, 50, even 60. That's not failure. That's mastery. Think about it. Every lazy, ambitious person in history was told they were wasting their potential. Jung himself didn't publish his most important work until his 60s. For decades, his ideas were seen as impractical. But when his moment came, everything he had been quietly developing became urgently relevant. His so-called laziness turned out to be preparation for contributions that outlasted all his productive contemporaries. It's a pattern you see over and over. The person everyone dismissed as lazy suddenly emerges with something that changes everything. Because while everyone else was optimizing efficiency, he was optimizing authenticity. While they followed other people's systems, he was building his own understanding. While they were performing productivity, he was becoming someone worth being productive about. Here's what nobody tells you about being the lazy, ambitious person. Your moment will come, but it won't look like anyone else's moment. Let me say that again. Jung wrote, "Your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." You've been looking inward while everyone else looks outward. You've been awakening while they've been dreaming of conventional success. And that awakening gives you something productivity culture can't provide. The ability to dream without anxiety, to have ambition without desperation, to create without forcing. But your moment won't announce itself with trumpets. It won't follow the hero's journey we've been taught to expect. It will feel quiet, inevitable, like it was always meant to happen. The circumstances will align. The timing will feel right. The idea you've been incubating will suddenly have a clear path to reality. And when that moment comes, every year of so-called laziness will reveal itself as a necessary preparation. Every day you spent doing nothing was your mind solving problems others couldn't even see. Every period of rest was your unconscious making connections that conscious effort would have missed. Society fears the lazy, ambitious person because they represent a different relationship to time, success, and human potential itself. They prove the problem isn't with lazy people who need motivation. The problem is a system that pathologizes natural human rhythms and tries to force everyone into the same mold. If you have big dreams but struggle with traditional productivity, if you have ambitions that don't seem to match your current actions, if you've been labeled as lazy despite a mindful of possibilities, Jung would recognize you instantly. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not failing at life. You're operating from a different part of human potential, a part society isn't equipped to measure. The question isn't whether you'll achieve your ambitions. The question is whether you'll have the courage to trust your process long enough to let them emerge. Because Jung was right. Your vision becomes clear when you look into your heart. And sometimes the most ambitious thing you can do is trust what you see there, even if the rest of the world can't see it yet. The lazy, ambitious person isn't society's problem. They're society's possibility, and that's exactly why they fear you. If this video made you see yourself differently, or made you think of someone in your life who fits this description, let me know in the comments. What's the biggest dream you've been afraid to pursue because it doesn't fit the traditional productivity model? And if you want more content that challenges everything you think you know about success, subscribe and hit that notification bell, because we're just getting started with the ideas society doesn't want you to hear.